discussing this primarily, it's coming out of my work with Marianne Shearer and how basically we manage a couple of properties on the web with her. One of them is the 100 Days to Health, which is an amazing program. It's a 100-day email program that does a gradual transition to healthy lifestyle type of stuff. And it's built on Marianne's book, Perfect Health, and all of her research into natural health, as well as using some products from AIM, which is a nutraceutical or food-based concentrated food supplement type applications of their products. So essentially, as I keep working with her and doing these different things, I come up with questions, I talk with people, and basically we're interested in pointing them towards health and some resources. And this topic comes up a lot, and so I really want to go over it and give people a kind of a basic overview of what these things are, because you hear a lot about this, but there's some interesting problems with essential fatty acids. So the first thing is what are they? What do they do in your body? And fatty acids are basically, they're very key elements. I mean, very, very key in how your body functions. There's just simply no way to get around it. They're in, I believe, every cell in your body, and they control incredibly profound and varied processes in your body. They're essentially a nutrient, is what the way to think about them, and then they themselves provide other functions. Essential fatty acids are the group of fatty acids which your body cannot make. So the interesting point is your body is constantly taking different compounds, especially fatty acids, and converting them into other types of acids that end up doing other work for you. Essential fatty acids are the ones you can't get through your own metabolism, your body transforming things, and so that's why they're called essential. Very similar to the idea of amino acids. Your body will convert amino acids to other amino acids, but there are a set of them that are essential. These essential fatty acids are polyunsaturated, meaning multiple unsaturated open chemical bonding points in there. And you've heard that term poly or monounsaturated or saturated, and that's the term. It's basically talking on a chemical level. Polyunsaturated fats are even more unstable than monounsaturated, and monounsaturated are more unstable than saturated. And so an example of saturated fats might be coconut oil or butter, and monounsaturated might be a type of vegetable oil, and then polyunsaturated might be like olive oil, where it's got multiple levels of lack of saturation. So that's all we're really talking about. EFAs are special kinds of fatty acids that tend to be polyunsaturated, and they're essential. Your body can't make them. Fatty acids are also important to remember. They're the highest form of potential energy of the macronutrients, protein, fats, carbohydrates. They have 9 calories a gram as opposed to 4 calories a gram. So when you're burning fat, you're burning almost, 2.25 times more energy when you can release a gram of fat to energy, so you metabolize it. Fatty acids work in many different systems when they're not being used for energy, like I mentioned before. If you don't get enough quantity and quality of them, the systems that they support simply don't work well. There's just no way for them to work. So it's not just enough to get them. You have to get them in the right amounts, and you have to get the right quality. The endocrine system is directly related to essential fatty acids, and that is all your hormones and then some. Clearly extremely important. Brain function, not only does your brain run on glucose, but it's regulated by essential fatty acids. Energy production in general, and then cell metabolism itself, the ability of a cell to have energy and function correctly and do what it's supposed to do. There's a bunch of secondary roles. Here's some: skin, hair, and nails, EFAs are involved with. Insulin sensitivity, huge situation for stabilizing blood sugar and keeping you healthy. Digestion, you'll hear a lot about people that struggle with certain digestive problems, and once they get past some of the fundamentals of things like food combining and even probiotic bacteria being corrected in their body, essential fatty acids can still play a tremendous role in how well your body digests food. Inflammation is an interesting problem. Inflammation itself is actually a healing response in the body, yet too much of it can be very damaging, very troublesome. And then you're looking at autoimmune responses. So when you're talking about the body attacking itself, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, and these other things, these are big deals. So your body gets EFAs, and it processes them through a couple of different methodologies. EFAs are the ones you can't make, so it's important to remember this. Your body will take these essential fatty acids from your diet and obviously from supplementation and convert them into other forms, and each of those forms is critical. You'll see this term 3, 6, and 9, omega-3, omega-6. Omega-3s and omega-6s are the essential fatty acids. Omega-9s are sometimes mentioned, but they're not essential. You get those from your diet. The term omega is simply just a number that describes the chemical bonding points in the fatty acid and how far they are from the end, or the omega, back. So the first unsaturated or unfilled chemical bond from the end, if it's the third one, it's an omega-3 or omega-6. Fatty acids, remember, are unsaturated, very unstable, because those open chemical bonds can be filled with other things like hydrogen, if you've heard the term of hydrogenated fats, or oxygen, or iron, and these things actually begin to decompose. The optimum amounts will vary, but it's important not to just get enough essential fatty acids, but also looking at the ratio. And here's we can go into this deeply and it's not worth it, but understand that most people get far more of omega-6s than omega-3s. There's a lot of reasons to that, but it also has led to a bunch of problems in health that weren't necessarily as common. And that's because omega-6s have a lot to do with inflammation. And so too much of them without the corresponding balance of the omega-3s, and you've got, serious inflammation, or you've got some other problems that are happening. So there's a lot of opinions out there, but it tends to be that the optimum ratio is 1:1, where you have 1 unit of 3 for 1 unit of 6. That's a great optimum ratio. Most American average diets are 15:1, 20:1. I've even seen studies that said 50:1. And so they have 50 times the amount of omega-6s versus omega-3s. So this is important, not just how your body gets it, but that you have the right ratios. And while that sounds overwhelming, it's really not. It's easy, something we can work on. The dietary guidelines are important to remember as well. To my knowledge, I couldn't find anything. Marianne knows of no research that is directly related to what the daily requirements are of essential fatty acids. It's basically all guesswork. It's largely built on what's called meta-analysis, and that's the analyzing of data from other research that isn't directly related to what your question is. So they did a research that when you project that you take more fish oil, and congestive heart failure patients tend to have this response. Well, so they look at what they did, they look at how much they gave them, they measured that, and then did a meta-analysis of all those data points and said, hey, we believe that adding more omega-3s in your diet is helpful, and they added this much and that was helpful, so you should make sure you're getting at least this much. There's been no research that's specific about how much your body truly needs. And part of that's because everybody's different, everybody's life is different, everybody's processes are different, and their efficiencies at doing this kind of stuff are very different. There's a lot of dietary advice from well-known and well-meaning people, and some of them are fantastic. You've got the Forks Over Knives folks, lots of those guys, T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. McDougall. Most of them, if not all of those that I mentioned, advocate a whole food, plant-based, no oil diet, meaning that you don't use any oils. And they believe that you're getting enough. Then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and you've got people that I think are absolutely insane talking about low carbohydrate diets, which really ended up mean a lot of animal fats and a lot of animal proteins. And they're saying, hey, you don't need it because you get everything that you need from animals. And in between, there's a lot of different opinions. It's important to understand that these are all guesses too. And they're well-intentioned and they're well-meaning, but there's a lot of research that you can land on that can show you either way. So it's important to remember that no one knows what these numbers are, and you can only really figure this out based upon your experience. So omega-3s. These are basically three fancy names: alpha-linoleic and EPA and DHA. I don't even want to docose hexanoic acid and whatever. The important thing to remember is there's 3 primary omega-3s that your body uses. And of those 3, ALA is the critical element where your body takes LA and converts it into EPA and then DHA. Each of those steps of conversion have 5 sub-steps. I think one of them has 4, one of them has 5. Each sub-step is a very important process. So your body literally takes something, converts it through a series of up to 19 different steps to get to the end product. If that conversion fails anywhere in the process, you don't get the very, very critical components that your body needs, EPA and DHA. So it's very important to remember that not only do you need to get a resource of this in your body, which is this alpha linoleic acid, but you need to make these conversions correctly. And your body is making these connections and conversions at some absurd rate. I read an article that mentioned they think that it's happening constantly, millions of times a second. There's millions of cells in your body at any point doing these conversions constantly. So this is pretty serious. The best sources of alpha linoleic acid that are from plants, and they're basically in raw nuts and seeds, the biggest one being flaxseed, then hemp seed, chia seed, almonds, walnuts. Dark leafy greens are really high in this product. So when you're talking about omega-3s, you're talking about raw nuts and seeds and dark leafy greens primarily. And that's really a fundamental piece. And like I said earlier, most people are not getting the best ratios of omega-3s to 6s, and so this is really what we're going to focus on. Omega-6s, they start off with LA, which is linoleic acid, and your body converts it into AA. And those are the two major types. There's other types, but these are the ones they identify. Your body will convert this it'll do it correctly, but there's even more efficient forms of linoleic acid, like gamma linoleic acid, that your body can convert even better. It's heavily dependent on the nutrition. The one article that I read, it talked about this, and GLA is hard to get unless you've got really good nutrition sources. This is mostly found in vegetables, a lot of oils, so vegetable oils are very high in omega-6s. There's some in nuts and seeds. Grain-fed meat scores really high on this, and that's primarily why people are just not as deficient. So omega-3s, mostly coming from plant sources, raw nuts and seeds. You can also get omega-3s in their finished form, EPA and DHA, in fish and some animals, because essentially what you're doing is looking at basically taking an animal who's eating grass, or a fish who's eating other fish that have been eating mostly kelp and other things like that, and they've already done the conversions to EPA and DHA, and then they've done the work for you. But there's secondary effects about doing that, and if your body needed that, then why does it go through all these sub-steps to get ALA to EPA and EPA to DHA? While we don't know why those steps occur, Marianne and I talked about this, and you can listen to the interview. I'll have a link to that later. Your body isn't wasteful. So those things, they have some reason, and we don't know what they are yet, but they've got to be critical. So the things that will tend to inhibit your ability with the EFAs and the metabolism, you don't have enough catalysts. So you can get this product in your body, but if you don't have enough enzymes, you don't have enough of the micronutrients, especially chlorophyll, those conversion steps don't work, and they don't work effectively, and that is incredibly important. So you will hear Marianne advocate Barley Life with Amegas all the time. They're never separate. In fact, she told me in the diet discussion we had, she just can't ever imagine not using them together. That's a real important piece here. If they go rancid, remember they're very unstable. So rancidity is very easy. Get some oxygen in there, get some bonding going on with some other free radicals, and all of a sudden you've got rancid oil, which has a lot of toxic side effects as it gets metabolized. They're unsaturated, and that's why they're so prone to the decomposition. They're more unstable than the more unsaturated. Again, that's the whole point of why you got to keep these things safe. Heat, basically, and lack of antioxidants are what are going to allow rancidity to increase. So keeping things in a cool, dry place and keeping them without oxygen, and then the addition of things like vitamin C and other antioxidants can protect the oil, but it's pretty hard once it goes south. The superheating is a real big deal. I mean, if you saute with some of these things, you put flax oil in a pan and try and saute with it, and you're going to break it down almost immediately, and it also can create carcinogenic compounds, which is a real bad deal. So superheated fats actually inhibit the ability to metabolize the essential fatty acids, as well as start to introduce carcinogenic products, and they also increase rancidity. So this is something really important to remember. Fish oil is a common supplement that's full of EPA and DHA that people talk about using, And the problem with that is that as they process fish, they essentially take the leftover elements of fish that they can't sell, in organs and stuff, and they process them with a lot of heat and even solvent to extract them, get the oils out of it, and then they say they distill it and filter it 4 and 5 times and stuff. But the reality is now you've got some leftover products in there, and you've superheated the fats, and there's a real potential problem with fish oil, and that processing with solvents has a really potential negative effect with the effectiveness of the EFAs. It really comes down to the fight for omega-3s. Okay, most people have way more omega-6s than omega-3s. Omega-6 when it's out of balance or there's too much of it in general, you're eating too many oils in your diet, you actually can have too much inflammation. You compete for the same resources like enzymes and catalysts and nutrients to metabolize omega-6s, so you're at a deficit. You have too much of one thing and not enough of the other, and you kind of heap problems on top of the other. And so when you're eating a lot of olive oil and other monounsaturated fatty acids and other polyunsaturated fatty acids, you're just basically constantly pushing yourself into the wrong side of the spectrum. And the fight really, when people talk about EFAs, unless you're really deficient, unless you're on a no oil diet or something like that, the fight is really to get omega-3s. Now, the question is always how much. And remember what we said, there's no absolute amount that can be recommended. There's no research that's done specifically about it. It's all guesswork, well-intentioned, well-informed guesswork, and these people have a good track record, but it's important to remember that. Marianne talks a lot about listening to your body, and one of the indicators she talks about that I've experienced myself is the cravings for fat or salt. If you're craving potato chips or French fries or anything fried and salty, there's a very good chance that all your body is trying to do is get fats. And if you feed it the wrong fats and the superheated fats, all you're doing is you're tricking it, and you're not only not supplying the fats, you're supplying the bad ones, and then you're reinforcing in your brain that you're feeding it fats, because your brain doesn't know that that's a French fry versus some olive oil versus some flaxseed oil or whatever. And if you're not listening to your body, you don't know. And so she'll talk in depth about, all of a sudden she eats 3 avocados and then she doesn't eat any. She wants almonds and she doesn't. It's hard, and it's helpful to know how to do it, but it takes practice. So look for cravings. When you're craving fats, hummus, guacamole, artichokes, dipped in something, cheese, potato chips. If you're craving these things and it's really dominating you, there's a good chance that if you were to fulfill that craving first with really, really good fats for enough time, you might actually find those cravings going away. And that's a real fundamental guideline to essential fatty acids. Then you should increase your essential fatty acid intake and the catalysts, those greens, until you begin to see positive changes. And again, I'm going to have a hour-long discussion I had with Marianne where you can listen to it. And she talks about like a child with autism who was, single word, only responsive, couldn't initiate communication. All of a sudden starts taking essential fatty acids and greens, and within the end of, I think she said 2 weeks, the mother's calling Marianne up saying, I've got a kid who's talking full sentences, he's displaying intelligence levels that are far beyond his younger brother, he's super communicative, this is incredible. And it literally looks like a miracle. And what was happening was his body was not only deficient in essential fatty acids, he was not getting enough in general, period. He had a hard time processing them and wasn't getting enough, and they added a lot, more than normal, and he ended up having this tremendous response. She talks about eczema too, somebody with eczema that just couldn't get rid of it. And she finally just started giving her a lot extra of the Amega products, and all of a sudden it went away. You maintain the intake and you stabilize any deficiencies. So when you start seeing a positive change, you keep going, you stabilize, you kind of find where your top of the threshold is, and then that's where you stabilize and stay there for a while and make sure that you're maintaining whatever health gain you've got. And then you could slowly reduce the intake, but really the reason why you do that is just if you weren't craving it. And Marianne talks about even she'll look at Amegas and ask herself, do I even want any of these today? After 30 years of eating really well, and not just eating well, living well, diet, lifestyle, emotions, spiritual health, everything, she still takes Amegas almost every day. And that basically indicates that it's very difficult to get enough from your diet on a consistent basis. And we'll talk more about that. So look for, if you're not craving salty foods, if you're not craving chocolate, which is really a craving for fat, then are you getting enough essential fatty acids? And you can pull back a little bit. So let's just remember the basics. You want to get adequate amounts. You want adequate catalysts. This is getting enough essential fatty acids and getting enough of the micronutrients, especially the greens. The dietary sources, I'll go back to that. Nuts and seeds, avocados, olives, vegetables. Fruits and veggies also provide the micronutrients, and then you look at supplemental forms like the omegas. Here's just a simple chart. Flaxseed oil and flax seeds are the highest, period. I mean, you just can't get any higher than that. Chia, hemp, seeds, great. Walnuts, great. Greens have some, surprisingly enough. Purslane, which is a weed that grows in my backyard, has quite a lot. Dark greens, dark leafy greens, romaine lettuce. Berries have a lot of omega-3s. Beans have a small to medium amount. Squashes can have a lot. Pumpkins and pumpkin seeds can have quite a bit. And then even spices, for their weight, have a tremendous amount of omega-3s. You're not eating the volume of these that you are other things, but I mean, I could make a pretty good dinner just looking at this chart right here. So, and there's lots of other resources. I'll have some more for you. The primary supplement that we talk about is omegas, and omegas are a phenomenal EFA supplement by themselves. They are a 2-to-1 blend of omega-3s and omega-6s, and they do have some of the omega-9s in them. So 2-to-1 is better than optimum, according to most people's opinion. It's organic flax, sesame, olive, and sunflower oil. It's got some different antioxidants like rosemary extract and some different things in there, and that stabilizes the oil itself. But the most important piece is that they're in a sealed nitrogen-flushed capsule that allows this product to be stable at room temperature. So this is huge, because the real issue is, it's very possible that you go buy this wonderful, very highly touted oil in a bottle, and you keep it in your fridge, and you spent a fortune on it, and then you open it and start getting oxygen in it as you pour it out, and by the time you're done in a month, you could be drinking rancid oil. Yeah, you kept it cold. Yeah, you kept it open or in a refrigerator and all that kind of stuff, but all you need to do is start introducing things in there to destabilize it. So this one piece makes omegas pretty much hard to beat, if not impossible. And Marianne talks about this over and over. She has tried just about everything she can get her hands on. She's looked at every product she can, and she's never found anything that not only is as effective, but also as cost effective or efficient. So, if you buy this $35, 500 milliliter bottle of high-end oils and they go bad by the time you're halfway through, there's a tremendous amount of cost and waste. These are certified gluten and GMO free. However, they are not vegan. The capsules are made out of a gelatin sourced from water buffalo. So I believe that's considered kosher. I don't know if they're certified kosher, but it's definitely kosher, but it's technically not vegan. They're coated with carob as well, so they're dark. My children eat them. They just put them in their mouth and chew them. And I have little kids, and they've been doing it their whole life. So even if you had to just simply break them open and eat them, you could do it. And it's, I don't like putting a bunch of raw oil in my mouth, but it's not that bad. And so if you can't swallow capsules, it's very easy to poke them, squeeze them out, introduce them into some sneaky things like nut butters or different quick salad dressing to put on a salad right as you're eating it, or there's a lot of things you could do to get that in your body. The price can get below $19 if you're an AIM member and you use all the discounts and rewards. Now again, we're distributors at AIM. We're pretty much get the maximum discount possible. But when you work those angles correctly, when they have automatic monthly reorders, or you buy it in the 6-pack box, and then you start working your way through this and look at your net commissions on these things, and then if you get any additional bonuses, it gets even below this price. You can start to get these down pretty big. I mean, $19 for 120 capsules. So this is a phenomenal product, and it's honestly unbeatable. And we talk about it all the time, and people think we're only doing it because we sell it. And the truth of the matter is if there was a better product out there, we certainly haven't found it, and Marianne hasn't found it in 30 years of people coming to her and pitching products to her, because everyone wants her to rep something. So these are fundamental, and they're a part of our daily routine. And I've gotten off of fish oil on these 7-8 years ago and saw a direct response. My wife will give these to our kids. My littlest boy is almost 4. He is wild. and crazy compared to the other ones. And so she'll give him 2 a day, and if he's really having a hard time, maybe she gives him 3, and he eats them gladly, and there's no real problems with that. Now the next piece is the greens, and Marianne talks about this quite often, and she'll say it over and over again. She almost doesn't understand why anybody would take the A-megas without the greens. She says she basically believes they have to be done together. And I see the evidence and the proof of that. So the best greens that we're aware of is barley. Now there's a lot of barley green powders. There's green powders. There's moringa. There's all these kinds of things. The truth of the matter is that young barley greens are pretty much the most potent green on the planet, and Barley Life is the most potent barley green juice powder on the market. There's a lot of other products like this out there, and you can try them. Some greens are better than none, but you got to remember that Barley Life is dehydrated, sprayed green juice, not chopped up leaves. So the potency of Barley Life is easily 2 to 3 times more than most products. And I've seen a couple people that have claimed they've done research on this, and honestly, I can't prove out whether it was truly scientific research or not. But I know that juice is far more nutrient dense than the leaves themselves. So that's an important thing to remember. The Barley Life itself has extremely high levels of chlorophyll. It's just because of how dark green it is, and it's just an incredible source of chlorophyll. But it also, Young Barley Life has the highest levels of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, and enzymes in one package. It's really hard to beat. And that's on there's a Dr. Hagiwara that did a research about detoxing from mercury. He had mercury poisoning. He went through an incredible exhaustive search at the time of every green food known to man, everything from wheatgrass to barley grass to all sorts of things. And he found that barley itself was the most potent. Started pioneering this work, and then some guys got together and started AIM. AIM farms their own products. They have a whole methodology for the harvesting and processing that's immediate, that's low temp, so these things are still enzymatically active. It's just hard to beat it. The next piece is that it's shelf stable. It mixes well with water. I drink it with water, but you can mix it with juice or whatever else you want. And they do have capsules as well. The price can get as low as $35 for the powder for 90 servings. And again, if you were to really work it, you could see even greater discounts than that, because you can get multiple benefits from having an AIM business that could be directly related to the price of your greens. So you'll find a lot of this information is connected to our work with Marianne, both with the Natural Way and the 100 Days to Health. And so we spun off our own little resource called Whole Life Well. And you can order those products from our Whole Life Well store. You can talk to us about signing up under AIM, and we can help you get a business going if you want to just get to the point where you can pay for your own nutrients and stuff like that. 100 Days to Health is a phenomenal program, like I mentioned earlier, and you can take that for free at 100daystohealth.com. And any questions and comments you can post to us through emails at these websites. You can also check out naturalway.coza, which is Marianne's resource in South Africa, and you can see a lot of products that they make in South Africa for sale right there.